I write rhymes sublime like Sprint, I'm in it for a diamond. When you get specific, it all seems too complex. But I see the big picture swallowing it whole like I eat my rice checks. And I live in a world of beautiful things like guns and roses, pretty women, and the grass is green. And I don't know what this life will bring, but I know that I'm to blame, man. Well, I'm just sitting in the shade by a pond, soaking up information like a tampon. And people on acid say the grass is growing, and I watch it, but I get too impatient, bust up my clippers and then I chop it. And I'm just tripping on this life as it passes. And yes, I'm attracted to silicone, if that's what Britney's asking. And I live in a world of beautiful things like guns and roses, pretty women, and the grass is green. And I don't know what this life will bring, but I know that I'm to blame. And yes, I know that I'm to blame.
Alright, the next bit is on the setup. In other words, how are you going to reload your shells? You want to have a nice clean area, lots of light. I'm out in my garage. I've dedicated a portion of my desk space to reloading, but I've also made it so I can remove the press and the powder measure and have a full workbench again if I need to. I've done that by bolting it directly to my bench. Get over there and show you. With these two bolts that go all the way through, 2 layers of plywood, and lean up against the post here. I've also made my little powder measure stand, so it screws directly into my screwdriver holder. If I really need to use the bench, I can just unscrew a couple screws, a couple bolts there. There's one. A couple bolts on that, set them aside, and I have a workbench area again. So it's a multitasker. Also a part of my storage space here in my garage for reloading. You see all my supplies, everything's set up. Primers are away from where the powder is. Okay, all the supplies I have are here. So let's talk about spacing, how we're going to load our space. How much space do you have? How much space do you need? Well, I figure I use about 5 or 6 lineal feet of space, starting from right about here over to where my vise is. And I can do a variety of tasks in that space. And again, we multitask. We do the batch method so that I'm loading 50 or so shells at a time using my trays. And I do each operation one at a time, and I move from left to right. So I'm always moving batches at a time rather than moving 1 or 2 shells at a time. Cases, I'll move the entire batch, so I do one thing to each batch at a time. And for some guys, they like to sit. Me, I'm a sitter. I like to sit and load. It's very relaxing. Gives me time to think about stuff and not wear my feet out. Other guys like to stand. Get right up in the action. They would have it, of course, a little bit higher. You'd have to have it up here, maybe in a higher workbench, so you could actually work on it without... I'm a tall guy. I'm a 6'4", so I'd have to have a really tall bench to do that. So it's just easier for me to multitask my workbench and use it for my press and my powder measure and all my other equipment, and then store everything up above. And again, there's many ways of using benches, tables. I've even seen guys use egg crates to bolt this stuff too. I don't know how they keep it still, but you want to have some place to mount it very firm. I use some really good heavy bolts there, because when you do use the press, it puts a lot of pressure on the downward stroke, puts a lot of pressure on your bench. So you need something heavy duty and well made, and some way of backing it up so that you have a backing to keep it from rocking back and forth. You don't want to have that rocking motion, because eventually you'll rock and get these bolts to come out, and you don't want to do that. Also want to have a way of mounting your powder measure up off the table. They do make a stand, but it would require bolting it again to the table, which I didn't really want to do. This is a little higher than I'd really like it. As you can see, it's probably 12 inches from the table to the bottom of the powder measure, but it works, and that's what counts. Okay. Always want to have a clean area, so you want to prep your area by cleaning off your bench, get everything out of the way, and then you want to have one setup at a time. Don't try to load more than one type of shell. So if I'm loading 308, for instance, I'll have only 308 cases, only 30 caliber bullets, only the one powder that I'm going to use for that particular load, the correct die set, and the correct primers will be on the table. Nothing else will be on the table. I won't interfere or mix up any other equipment or types of components with that particular setup. And again, I'm using, in this case, a Sierra reloading manual for my particular type of shell that I want to reload. I will look up the particular bullet size, weight, etc., and I'll get the load. I'll make a note of that loads for the particular powder, particular speed I want to run it at. So if I want to run at 2,600 feet per second, I'll find the powder that I'm using, like 4895, and I'm going to start somewhere in the 41 to 42 grain range. I hardly ever, and I mean hardly ever, max out my loads. To me, it's not necessary. The bullet gets to where it's going in plenty of time. The only thing I worry about is if I'm shooting long range. So again, prep your area properly. Make sure you have the right components for that particular thing. You want to mount your equipment in a place that's going to be convenient and easy to use. And if you're sitting in one place, you want to have it so that it's available to you in that space. You don't want to be getting up, down, up, down, etc. to find everything. Again, that's why you have the proper space, properly laid out with all your equipment. And again, you want to store your supplies in a place that's convenient, yet keeps it separate, so you have all the powder in one area, primers in another, bullets in another. Again, I keep mine sorted by what caliber I'm loading. So if I, for instance, am loading 224 diameter, I have all those. If you have 270, 7mm Magnum, and then 30 caliber, and then 38 pistol, for example, I'll have those all categorized by the way I want to load them. And again, using the manual, I'll have it all set up. The last thing I want to talk about is, on this section, is caring for your equipment. They do require some maintenance as far as keeping things clean, operating properly. You want to make sure that everything's put away properly when you're done using it. You want to wipe everything down. You'll occasionally have to grease the ram. This is the ram on your press. Or make sure if you have a progressive press that you actually take care of the progressive part that turns. Okay, you want to have that so it's properly maintained, adjusted, and ready to go for the next time. And when you're done, don't leave it out. Put everything away. Take care of your equipment. If you don't take care of it, it won't take care of you. So you want to make sure all your stuff's put away properly. And you want to leave your desk nice and clean. Don't leave any powder laying around. If you got loose grains of powder, get them vacuumed up. Take care of business.
And people on acid say the grass is growing and I watch it, but I get too impatient, bust up my clippers and then I chop it. And I'm just tripping on this life as it passes. And yes, I'm attracted to silicone if that's what Britney's asking. And I live in a world of beautiful things like guns and roses, pretty women, and the grass is green. And I don't know what this life will bring, but I know